Will Chanel prove once again that they're the kings of fresh, elegant sophistication? Let's see in this first impression comparison. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel, today we're talking fragrances, and this is a first impression comparison between Chanel's Boy and Chanel's Comète. In this format, I compare and give my first impressions on two fragrances, usually in sample form, that I selected to cover a specific topic. This is not a fragrance battle. We're not here to define which of the two fragrances is better, but we're here to talk about the work experience and to open the conversation. For whatever reason, Chanel, specifically within the fragrance world, is one of those brands that really appeals to me. They seem to do a lot of the things right. And yes, they've been putting out a lot of flankers, specifically in the Bleu de Chanel line and in the women's line, but all of their releases have the classiness and sophistication you would expect from such a brand. Everything comes across as confident and careful and cared for. The brand just oozes class, it oozes elegance. It's really cool. And although I don't own anything from the more commercial, normal line, except for on Deus, which is one of my favorite daily fragrances ever, I really want to acquire more, specifically some of the classics. In the meantime though, I want to delve more into the private line, into the Les Exclusives line. Today, we're gonna be sampling Boy and Comète, two fairly new releases. Actually, Boy came out in 2016, so it's not that new. But Comète, at the time of this filming, is still the latest release in the line. I seem to recall this one here coming out in spring or summer of last year, 2024, so still very new. I have not smelled either of these, by the way. I got these decants a while back and I've never used them. It's finally time to give them a sniff. According to the description, these actually seem fairly comparable when it comes to use cases. They sound excellent and right up my alley. I'm expecting sophisticated, fresh, very beautiful daily wears, both of them, kind of injected with a little bit of the youthfulness. Boy is apparently a fougère with a little bit of a sweeter base with some sweet vanilla in the base, and Comète seems to be a cherry blossom that is slightly powdery, very beautiful and likable. I'm expecting nothing else from Chanel, and I can't wait to get my nose on these. But before we get into the actual video, I want to just give a shout out to the brand Fioboc that sent me this t-shirt. They make really high quality garments. I was so surprised. They reached out to me and they said, hey, you want 3 t-shirts? As long as you feature them in a video, we're good. And no exchange other than that. And I got the t-shirts and I was blown away. So comfortable. They feel exceptionally high quality. The textile is semi-stretch. It's moisture wicking. It just feels really great. This one here specifically is a little bit thicker. It's a very substantial textile which feels extremely high quality. It wears high quality. It's so comfortable. Amazing stuff. It's tight in the right places. It's loose in the right places. It's really great. Link down below. I don't have any affiliate link. I don't get anything. There was no exchange of money. They just sent out the products and I can vouch for them. Super cool. Let's get back to the video though. Given the fact that we are in the first impression comparison format, let me just remind you how this works. I'll be spraying these first and foremost on paper, trying to simulate the idea of wearing them on clothes. These are Chanel's and I'm expecting them to wear extremely well on clothing, especially given how fresh and light these are. After that, I'll be spraying these on skin, left and right arm. I'll be talking about my first impressions, talking about the opening, giving a little bit of my experience on the house. Then I'll be stepping away maybe for 2 to 3 hours, coming back, talking about the dry down, giving my forecasted longevity, my forecasted use cases, and just overall recommendations. It's a very cool format. I learned so much from this, and actually I get a very good idea about the fragrances I sample. Okay, let's start off the sampling by spraying Comète on paper. I'm not necessarily sure what to expect from this, other than the fact that it's supposed to be a cherry blossom fragrance with a little bit of a powdery component. This might lean a little bit feminine. I'm not necessarily worried about that because I wear everything, and some of my favorite fragrances are actually a little bit more feminine. These samples I got from a guy decanting his bottles. They're very high quality. I've sampled the Le Lion through the same samples. I sampled the Louis Vuitton fragrances in my last video from the same samples. These are very good. 2 sprays will be more than enough. So let's give it the good 2 sprays on the card. Yeah, very good atomizers. And by the way, these are 5 ml samples, and like the Louis Vuitton, I'm expecting to go through the whole thing because these are so wearable. You can overspray them and just come across as clean, fresh, and put together. This is immediately sophisticated, classy, elegant, clean, fresh, very delicate. I feel that delicate is the strongest word in here. It just comes across as refined. It's very difficult to pick apart. I'm not the greatest with notes, as you may know, but I can't identify any specific floral. Now, there is a little bit of a cherryness in here, and it might be transferring through the cherry blossom, but I'm not sure how much actual cherry is in the cherry blossom. This comes across as lightly pink. It's very fluffy, it's very dry. It's almost a little bit powdery. That is something that I was expecting. This is so beautiful. It feels like a dust cloud. It feels like a makeup powder cloud. It's very, very delicate. It's so inoffensive. And this would probably work in pretty much every daytime situation possible. I say daytime because it's very bright. It's very, very polite. And it feels something more in tune for daytime activities. Again, I'm just making stuff up based on a very first sniff, very first impression, but I'm picturing the color white, maybe a light pink. This comes across as bright, very fresh, and very energetic. And I'm saying energetic despite it being a floral, but it has a presence to it, while still being very, very delicate and sophisticated. This smells so insanely high quality. It's so well put together, so professionally designed, so professionally cared for. It smells exactly like a Chanel should smell like. This is absolutely amazing. I really like it. It definitely is feminine right off the bat. It's undeniable. Would I purchase something like this for personal use though? Well, I really like the smell, but maybe a full bottle of this is not something I would spend that kind of money on because these are expensive. Chanel Les Exclusives line hovers above $200 for 75 ml. It's crazy money, especially in today's time, especially given the insane price hike that these fragrances were subjected to. That being said, this is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I really can't fault the scent profile. It's just a little bit too feminine, a little bit too girly for my taste, especially on paper. It just comes across as very, very youthful, and it has this pinkness about it. And I have no issue with pink or no issue with feminine fragrances, but this really comes across as girly. And as much as I like women's fragrances, this is a little bit too much in that direction. But I'll try it on skin later. It might change a lot. It might take up on some of my skin chemistry. But first, let's sample Boy on paper. Boy is one of those fragrances that have been interesting in sampling for a very, very long time. This seems to be like a cool modern interpretation of a barbershop, a little bit more youthful maybe. Lavender and citruses up top, vanilla and musk in the base. I'm still expecting a lot of elegance, a lot of sophistication, maybe a little bit more likability. And I'm actually really fond of fresh, invigorating, day-starting barbershop fragrances, with my reference in the genre being Sartorial by Penhaligon's. I love wearing that fragrance, especially when I go to work. That one there combines a modern aspect with a little bit of a timeless approach. Bertrand Duchefur really pulled off a magic trick on that one. And for whatever reason, I'm kind of expecting Boy to be in a similar ballpark, maybe less modern, less edgy and scratchy, and more likable, more mass appealing, and more vanillic. But let's spray it on paper to find out. Let's give it the usual 2 sprays. Super good atomizers once again. I can immediately smell it in the air. This is very, very bright, very, very lavender filled. It smells kind of like the opening of Sartorial. Maybe I conditioned myself, but that is kind of what I'm getting. More citruses though, much, much more citruses. This has a very beautiful, fresh, traditional-ish combination of citruses and lavender. It's not as metallic as Sartorial by any stretch of the imagination. Sartorial is one of those fragrances that is mind-blowing when you first smell it. It has this metallic scratchiness, which doesn't come across as abrasive. It just comes across as insanely energetic. It feels like a jolt of caffeine. It feels like a shot of adrenaline. This one here does not have that. It's much more smooth. It's much more rounded off. Beautiful. Wow, so well done. This is not super unique. Well, to be honest, not even Comète was super unique. But it smells insanely high quality. Once again, it feels cared for. It feels professionally made. It feels professionally designed. The citruses in here are definitely fighting for a protagonist role with that lavender. They're very apparent, they're very front and center, much more than I was expecting. They come across as fairly sweet. It's more like a mandarin, maybe like a tangerine. It feels very delicate. Again, picture these citruses, maybe the peel is off and you smell the oiliness, you smell the juices. Everything is super simple, super subtle and delicate. Chanel is delicate. Le Lion is a bombastic fragrance. It's absolutely beautiful and I love it for that. But all of the other offerings that I've tried have this refinement about them. Even something like Coromandel, which is still pretty bombastic when you look at the notes, it comes across as really refined and really subtle, so sophisticated, and this is exactly like that. Comète was also like that. I really like this. There's also a little bit of a green touch in the back. I'm not necessarily sure what it is. It comes across as slightly aromatic. What I'm mostly surprised about is that on paper, I get no vanillic aspect whatsoever, no muskiness, no fluffiness. I was expecting a lot more of that, but maybe it shows its head later down the road on the Drydown. This is really handsome, and if it wears this good on skin, I might be looking at integrating the bottle in my collection. This has the same sort of utility that I get from Louis Vuitton, but even more so. It's very, very beautiful, very likable, yet it doesn't come across as too elegant. I was scared that it would come across as too formal, but it's very, very playful. Yep, if this wears this good on skin, I'll definitely be looking into getting a bottle. This might be replacing one of my Louis Vuitton's really, really excellent stuff. I say we go on to skin because I'm very excited to try them. Okay, for skin, let's go back to Comète. I'll be spraying this on my right arm, so let's give it 2 good sprays, maybe even 3. I just feel like being engulfed in this beautiful sillage. This might be a lot of fragrance, especially to, not contrasting, because as I said before, my expectations are kind of met. They have the same utility to them. They have the same freshness, same casualness. They come across as very sophisticated, very elegant, yet extremely wearable. I'm expecting these two to easily go casual to elegant with no issues whatsoever. They just come across as mind-free, very, very young, and very youthful. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And by the way, I can easily smell Comète blasting off the skin. It's absolutely incredible. Yes, my skin has definitely darkened the scent up. It's not as feminine, not as girly. There's something missing. Let me grab the strip a sec because on paper, there's a certain fresh flowery note, which is definitely not registering on my skin. On my skin, the scent comes across as much more deep, much more dense, much more fruity. It's less powdery, less floral, and less dry. Before, when I smelled this off paper, I described the scent as a cloud of makeup powder. This feeling is almost completely gone off my skin. This smells like, it smells much more dense and fruity. It smells like cherry. And I'm not even sure cherry is even in the fragrance, but I really pick up on the cherry flavor. And unfortunately, it's not the type of cherry that I like. I like a very artificial, very bright, almost Kool-Aid cherry. And obviously, this is not something that you would expect from Chanel. Chanel sources high quality materials. They aim for elegance and smoothness, and that sort of cherry is not that. Kind of smells like a cherry smoothie, maybe blended with milk or yogurt or something milky, something more dense, something creamy. I'm not exactly sure what it is, if it's another floral, maybe the osmanthus, or if there is osmanthus, but it has this creamy texture to it, which is peculiar. It feels almost like an apricot. It feels like sandalwood. It has this yogurt feel, which is very, very peculiar. And it is much more unisex. It almost leans gourmand. It's not really gourmand because it still wears like a perfume. It doesn't really evoke food whatsoever, but it has a creaminess which is so absent off paper. Off paper, the scent came across as sparkling, bright, fresh, very, very energizing. And on skin, it just darkens down and it kind of dulls out. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. Some people might actually prefer the dark rendition on skin, but I really like that bright aspect off paper. The scent just came across as white, light pink. It smelled like spring wind. It smelled so refreshing and sparkling. And now on skin, it has a completely different tone. It almost smells like an evening scent. It almost more resembles something like Coromandel by Chanel. And I know it has nothing to do with it, but it has the same vibe, it has the same feeling. And before, it smelled more like a boy. It smelled like this thing to be worn outside in the sun. But it's clearly much more unisex, at least on my skin. So if you were on the tipping point trying to decide if to wear this, if you thought it was just a little bit too feminine, fear not. On skin, it completely changes. This scent in general on skin really changes, both in scent profile and vibe and mood. It's really peculiar. I wasn't expecting such change. Anyway, I think I'm done with Comète for now. On skin, it's way less bright. It's a little bit more fatiguing than I was expecting. And I'm also very curious about Boy on skin. So let's move on to that. All right, back to the sample of Boy. Let me give it 3 good sprays on my left arm. Beautiful atomizers, really good quality. Source your decants locally. You might be impressed by what you can find. I'm being kind of choked out right now. It's super powerful. And maybe 3 sprays on each arm is a little bit overdoing it, but yeah, this needs a little bit more air. I had to drink some water while waiting for this to settle down. For whatever reason, this scent was blasting off my skin to a degree which was almost choking me out. It's crazy potent, and especially in the opening. Now I feel that most of the alcohol has evaporated and I can finally get my nose onto it. This one here also is quite different than on strip. Let me just grab the strip quick. Both of these lose a lot of brightness to almost an upsetting degree because I was really fond of that freshness, that brightness. Off strip, this smells still more similar to something like Sartorial, which is really cool. I really like that opening. Sartorial actually manages to keep that fresh, energetic, bright opening even off skin. This one here is darkening a lot. Interestingly enough, I still pick up on the citruses. The lavender is almost a back player on skin. On skin, the citruses are really the protagonist. They feel very natural, very juicy, very oily. Yeah, this one here too on strip is completely different. It's much more fresh, much more bright and clean, almost to a metallic degree. Off the bat, first impressions, I would probably wear both Boy and Comète on clothes to preserve that brightness, that freshness. They come across as very energetic and young, very youthful. And on skin, they darken up significantly. That being said, I'm actually super impressed and very attracted to Boy's citrusy rendition on skin. They come across as more adult, more aromatic and more rindy. And this aromatic component might be herbal in nature. It might even be the lavender kind of playing games with my head. The lavender is much more subtle. It's not a protagonist at all, as I said before. And on skin, the scent is completely different from elegance Sartorial. That one there is very sharp, very metallic. It almost picks up a leathery component. This is citrusy, smooth, yet it's much more adult. This is really pretty, super high end. It smells insanely high quality. The citruses are still very fresh. Surprisingly enough, it's actually kind of reminding me of Louis Vuitton's On the Beach, which I sampled relatively recently in a first impression comparison video. And I'm being reminded of that probably due to the very realistic nature of the citruses on skin. They just come across as very juicy and photorealistic. And also probably due to the herbal component, which is adding a little bit of savoriness. In my first impression comparison for the Louis Vuitton, I raved about the savory component in that. On the Beach is one of the more realistic, unique marine scents out there. It smells like sand. It's so insanely peculiar. This one here on skin is kind of reminding me of that. And at this point, I'm thinking that it's probably some sort of a rosemary, thyme, something that is playing with the citruses, giving them a little bit of saltiness, which is much needed to really cut through. On the Beach does not have lavender. This one here still has lavender, so they're not the same scent whatsoever. Also, Boy does not depict a beach whatsoever. This comes across as very perfumey in nature. As much as I'm trying to read through the lines, I'm still really not picking up on any vanillic or musky component. Maybe these notes are just there to support the composition. Maybe they're there to give the scent a roundness and to blanket out all the sharp edges. It comes across as incredibly present, very full-bodied, both of them actually. Yeah, Comète is still very, very potent. It's just sitting on my skin. It's very dense. These two scents on skin are incredibly different from their paper counterparts. It's really staggering. I can't underline it enough. It's almost upsetting. But now that I think about it a little bit more, it might be seen as a pro because you can have both renditions. When you want a darker representation, you spray on skin. When you want something brighter and fresher, you spray on clothes. And I think that you could actually balance it out if you spray a little bit on skin and a little bit on clothes. It's an interesting take for sure. I've never smelled fragrances that are so radically different, or rather, some fragrances change in character because some notes really don't come through, but these really change in mood, and the scent profile is almost different. It feels like a flanker, super particular. Anyway, I think I'm done with both. I'm gonna take a break because I really need it, especially the first sprays of Boy really flooded this room. I need to aerate a little. I'll go do some editing and come back in maybe 2 hours. All right, I'm back. It's been about 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's been a really great time. These two scents have been radiating off my skin. Great sillage, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So enjoyable, so elegant. I was actually changing my mind a lot while sampling these. I kept going back and forth, trying to decide which one was the better rendition, paper or skin. Ultimately, I decided for skin because these in the Drydown really come alive. Actually, they don't even come alive in the sense of brightness. They're just so insanely smooth, so refined, so sophisticated. In the Drydown, these two scents really showcase the prowess of Chanel when manufacturing high quality scents in a professional way. They're so incredibly well done, so beautiful, and so wearable. But before I talk about my wear experience on skin, let me reach back and grab the samples off paper. This one here is Comète after about 2.5 hours. I'm really impressed. This is very, very close to the opening. It smells almost one-to-one. It's obviously more subtle. A lot of the florals have gone, but it has the same vibe. It retains a lot of the characteristics which made the opening so great. It's bright, it's fresh, it's clean, it's really, really invigorating. It comes across as white or light pink. It's still super girly, almost to a too feminine degree. Maybe I was used to the scent on skin, but this one here is really, really feminine. I would still wear it occasionally because it's really beautiful, but it's not necessarily my style. Yes, so the detail in the florals has gone. It feels more abstract, it feels more generic, it feels less specific. It's almost more powdery, it almost smells a little bit more like clean linen. The longevity off strip is crazy. It's really, really good. And again, I can perceive that the scent has dried down, but not by much. On skin, it's much more of a drastic change. And I bet the longevity of this when sprayed on clothes would be super good, maybe in a more deceptive manner. And I say deceptive because it does kind of smell like clean linen at this stage, and you might be prone to think that it's just your clothes, but it smells super good, very, very noticeable. Even by waving the thing around, I'm engulfed in this little mini sillage. It's really, really great. I'm so impressed. It smells realistic. It smells well done. There's no synthetics in here which are detectable, but it's clearly based on synthetics because this kind of performance, this kind of radiating experience after 2.5 hours off a tiny strip like this is not necessarily common. Really, really good. Anyway, Comète on skin is a completely different story. There's a lot more fruitiness. Again, even in the opening, the drastic change between that powdery floralness and the fruitiness was so evident. The scent now on skin has dried down to this incredibly smooth and beautiful cherry note with a little bit of a woody component. That milky note, that creaminess which was present up top on skin is almost completely gone. It's probably due to the sandalwood literally drying off, leaving behind its more fibrous component. The wood aspect in here combined with the cherry almost comes across as a little bit boozy. Not necessarily the liquid, it's more like the wood that was containing a boozy, like a wooden barrel of some sort. It's very complex. And it has so many facets to it. It's super elegant, it's so pleasurable. This might be due to it being on my skin. Again, on strip, it's completely different. There's no woodiness. It's still very powdery and floral. On skin, the powder component is more in the type of wear you get. It feels more dusty, it feels more dry. not necessarily ashy. I always refer to it as ashy. It doesn't smell like ash, but it has this like ashy texture to it. It feels very, very dry. And the woody cherry note is so beautiful. Anyway, it's still super good. It's really, really complex, much more complex than I was expecting. And this is one of the reasons why I ended up preferring it off my skin rather than on strip. It's still beautiful on strip. It's just much more feminine, much more bright. On skin, it really turns around. It becomes incredible. I love it and I highly recommend it, but it's still a very, very strong sample first just because of how well it interacts with skin and skin chemistry in general. It's mind-boggling how different it can be. Really, really cool stuff. But now on to Boy. I have to say that Boy off strip is a little bit disappointing. The longevity is pretty bad. The scent is almost completely gone. I can barely detect it. The citruses are gone. What is left is basically a little bit of a powdery, musky component with that lavender note. It smells like fresh linen. It smells like a clean shirt. It's much more serious, much more put together. It's good, obviously. It smells like clean linen, kind of like the other one, but it's so faint. I really have to concentrate. This is another stark difference from the skin. Boy on skin transitioned a lot. It really, really evolved. On skin, the citrus is faded off and you're basically left with this beautiful, rich, rounded off, vanillic, musky lavender thing. And it's so different from the opening because, as I said before, the opening had this citrusy component with this aromaticness, which gave it a little bit of savoriness. That whole block is completely gone. Now it smells a lot more like the Drydown of Sartorial by Elegance, but it's much more young, much more youthful. And the vanillic component really surprised me because out of nowhere it just came out and it really gave this scent, this underlying warmth. It feels like a warm blanket. It's not vanillic in the sweet sense. It just gives it a lot more body. It has this resonating chamber sort of feeling. It feels like an audio track or maybe like a music track with the perfect amount of reverb. It feels so well put together, so well built, so well designed, so insanely professional to almost a surprising degree. And I know that I shouldn't be surprised because we're talking Chanel and specifically we're talking Les Exclusives, and these fragrances are sublimely put together, but still really, really great stuff. I'm so impressed. And when you first spray this on, if you caught yourself being distracted by all of those beautiful citruses, and if you're wondering if this was a lavender scent after all, if this was a barbershop, just wait it out. In the Drydown, this all comes together. The lavender comes forward. It really combines with those musky notes, with those vanillic notes, making this beautiful representation of a creamy shaving foam. It reminds me of Beau de Jour in a more high quality fashion. It's so well made, so well done. And the transition between those citruses in this phase here is mind-blowing. It happens so smoothly, so linearly. The wear experience on both of these scents is absolutely incredible. They wear supremely well. They're not jarring whatsoever. They don't fall off a cliff. They're so well designed. I can't stress this enough. I'm so impressed. These are probably some of the more high quality scents that I've smelled in a while. And I'm including those Louis Vuittons. The Louis Vuittons that I smelled recently were cool. They were fun, super well designed, specifically on the beach. But the longevity wasn't as well tailored as these. These are absolutely mind-boggling. It's time to wrap this up. Let's cover some practicalities, or rather some forecasted practicalities, because again, this is not a full review. These are not true full wears. When it comes to longevity, I'm expecting a lot from these two scents. I'm expecting a good 7 to 8 hours from both. They're very, very persistent. They're very powerful, specifically on skin. Boy on paper is a little bit depressing, a little bit underwhelming. It has very bad longevity. And unless you're specifically into clean linen smell, I would strictly wear it on skin. On skin, though, it's amazing. It really transitions a lot. It has a beautiful wear experience. You get a lot of facets, a lot of nuances. It's incredible. Comète, on the other hand, has pretty good longevity both on paper or clothes and on skin. The scent profile is very, very different, paper to skin. but it's so long lasting and it radiates a lot, even 2.5 hours, 3 hours down the road. The sillage on both of these on skin is beautiful and it really keeps you going. It really envelops you. I can smell them around my face, even though I just sprayed my arms. Super good stuff. When it comes to my predictions regarding use cases, these two scents come across as super versatile. They're very, very likable. They're mass appealing. They're classy. They're sophisticated. They're elegant. You can wear them in every situation possible. No issues whatsoever, even on the daily. Make them your signature scents. They're so, so good. I think that they lean a little bit more warmer weather. They just come across as sunny, fresh, young, and fun. Both of the scents have this fun playfulness, but especially Comète on paper really shines through. It's sparkly, it's bright, it's beautiful and unique. It screams fun in the sun, it screams spring and summer. Absolutely gorgeous. I would totally wear these two, both of them, all year round. Actually, come to think about it, the winter months, the cold air might even aid to that sharpness, to that brightness, to that clean feeling. They're super, super good. And despite being a little bit more youthful and young, they come across as very, very versatile age-wise as well, because typically Chanel, if you pick something like Coromandel, that comes across as a little bit more mature and overly elegant. These two have that sparkle that really cuts through that thick, old-fashioned, velvety elegance, making these scents so playful, so easy to wear, just so likable. These are absolutely incredible. I'll be definitely picking up a bottle of Boy. I'm very, very impressed. The other one, Comète, is good. I like it, but it's not necessarily for me. Again, especially at the price. These are expensive, as I said before. Comète, I'll probably be wearing this decant. I'll probably be enjoying the decant. But yeah, full bottle, really not for me. Boy, though, cool. I love it. It might even replace Sartorial. It's just that good. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and it helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. It's never taken for granted. Many more first impression comparison videos to come. Many more fun fragrances to showcase. I can't wait. See you in the next one and cheers.